I think today the whole situation is changed, especially with new technological products. Okay, classroom becomes the so-called U-classroom, ubiquitous. It exists everywhere, and you can do your own learning, not just during the class period. You can do your own learning in reality 24 hours a day. Okay? In other words, you can do your own learning anytime, anywhere, whenever you are in the right mood, whenever you want. Okay? So this is called flipped classroom. Okay? In other words, you make good use of technology. You film your own teacher. Okay, like I'm doing my teaching at the moment, film my own teaching, and I upload my teaching, my material, my teaching content into a certain platform. Okay, at Asia University, we are using the so-called Moodle. I believe you are quite familiar with Moodle. Okay, a very popular platform for teaching. So eventually you might want to use Moodle for your purpose. I think if you want to access to my teaching material, to my PowerPoint like what I did here, you just visit your learning platform at Asia University called Moodle. Okay, so I upload my teaching material into Moodle, and then I send you a message. Folks, please get prepared, or please read in advance all the material I have uploaded to the Moodle system. So you have the material first. You have my own way of teaching first. You have my teaching material first. And then you read at home, you read wherever you like, whenever you like. And during the actual classroom time, you come here. We just start some kind of discussion. Okay? In other words, I don't have to lecture. You have seen my lecture, in the learning platform. So as a teacher, I don't have to give lecture here. I don't have to be a sage, a prophet, a saint, a master. I will just be a friend. We call it a facilitator, to help you do the learning. Okay, let's go flipped classroom. In other words, the role of the teacher has been flipped, has been changed. Could you follow me? So this is a new, teaching approach. So bear in mind, if you want to be a teacher, try to learn how to use flipped classroom approach in your teaching. Okay? And of course, two components. If you want to use flipped classroom, two components are required. One is interactive teaching. This is one key component. In other words, in terms of teaching, like I'm doing the teaching at the moment, I need to interact with you. Interactive. Okay? We will have some interaction. Okay? In other words, you will not sit there as if you're an idiot. Okay? You need to respond to me. Interactive teaching. So interactive teaching is one crucial component. Another important component when it comes to flipped classroom is highly interactive learning activities. Highly interactive. So the key word is interactive. In Chinese, we call 互动. Okay, that's the key word. So you have two components: interactive teaching, and then highly interactive learning activities. In other words, as a teacher, you have to design many activities for your students so that you will be able to engage your students, to motivate your students. Okay? But bear in mind, there is a certain limit for human attention. If I ask you to watch the film of my teaching, okay, and you have to sit here and watch the film for, let's say, 30 minutes. You don't have to be 2 hours, 30 minutes or 60 minutes. I believe after 12 or 10 minutes, you will feel easy. You begin to fall asleep. Because the limit of human attention span is about 10 to 12 minutes at most. So if you film your own teaching, you have to cut your film into small units, small sections. Each unit, each section needs to be complete in itself. Okay, this is a complete unit. You have a certain issue to address. You have a certain question to solve. And the unit is a complete unit in solving a certain issue or in dealing with a certain topic. The unit must be complete. But make your unit no longer than 12 minutes. 12 minutes. Okay? More than 12 minutes, then watching your film will become a torture, not an enjoyment. Could you follow me? Okay? Let's go flip classroom. Every teacher can do a flip classroom. Okay? And later on, you might realize today, because of the convenience of educational technology, you can reach huge audience as a teacher. In other words, like today we have 7 or 8 people here. 2 are still missing, okay? We have 7 or 8 people here. But in terms of money, this kind of teaching is very expensive. It's very costly. If I can teach, let's say, 20,000 students at one time, then the cost is almost insignificant. Because the same pay, the same teacher, but now I have 20,000 registered for the course. Now I have only like 8 or 9. So the course turned out with just this small number, the course turned out to be quite expensive. Okay, so now we have a new teaching approach called MOOCs. MOOCs, MOOCs. MOOCs, the first A refer to massive, huge number, big data. Now you are all familiar with big data and the importance of big data. I do believe you did attend the talk last week, right? Very inspiring. Big data. Okay, big data. Big data is good for a teacher to use, in your teaching, in your research, in many areas. Okay, a teacher can benefit a lot from big data. So massive means huge, big data. Okay, so like if you offer a course, you might have like 20,000 students or even 1 million students. Imagine, okay, for one lecture, you could have 1 million students. What a vanity. Okay, what a vanity as a teacher. Okay, okay. So take a seat here, please. Okay. So MOOCs, the first A refer to massive. The first O refer to open. Open. It's open to everybody to those who want to learn, okay, across the borders, without borders, 跨界无国界, okay, across the borders, without borders. That's first O, open. Then the second O, I believe you could easily make a quick guess. Online. Okay, massive, open, online, the last C, course. Okay, with S, courses. You might offer more than one course. So MOOCs in Chinese, 模课师, refer to open online courses reaching huge audience. So you might be able to use, your flipped classroom teaching approach in producing MOOCs. Okay, again, using educational technology. For example, if you are interested in my teaching, you just type Asia University, type my English name or my Chinese name. You will see through YouTube my teaching here. I did upload more than one teaching to the YouTube. Okay, and you don't have to be my student. You don't have to register in my class. You could easily watch how I teach Yinghuei. Okay, for example. So this will become the new trend in terms of teaching. This will become a new trend. Okay, so I bring you to this particular, classroom. We call case study classroom based upon the same classroom at Harvard University for this purpose. You could realize the layout is different. Okay, and then the sound effect without a microphone, the sound effect is perfect. Actually, in such a classroom, you don't need to use a microphone. Okay, so bear in mind, at the end of this semester, one of your homework is I am going to divide you into two groups. Okay, two groups with about equal number. Okay, and then in your own group, you need to discuss which teaching material to use, so that you could use the material and film your own teaching and post it to YouTube for your students to learn. Could you follow me? And this is the right classroom for you to use. So in case you want to make use of this classroom or this case study room, okay, just book in advance through the office. Is it clear? Any question? And this will be the only time we are here, okay, during the semester. Next week, we'll return back to room 2003. This is our classroom. This case study room is just reserved for today's class. So you can see the camera at the back. The camera is filming me, filming my own teaching, okay? One important reason for you to be here, for you to take this course, is to develop your textual power. Okay? You are asked why you need to attend Dr. Chen's class, why you have to register this class. Of course, you could say because it's required. I have no other choice. But that would be a sad enough reason, okay? You are here not because it's required. You are here because you are an English major. And as an English major, you need to develop one crucial ability, that is textual power. In other words, the ability to do with the texts. Textual power means your ability to read texts. to interpret texts and then to criticize texts. Okay, so textual power is the key term for you to hear, to bear in mind. Okay, textual power. You need to be able to deal with the texts. It doesn't matter whether the text is fiction or non-fiction. Fiction means literature in general, or non-fiction. It could be just a poster, or a very short article in a newspaper, or a little work, or even a classic, for example. It doesn't matter. The key point is you need to be able to read texts. But it's easy to say to read texts, but reading actually is not as simple as you imagine. Because when you are doing a certain reading, you are more or less like doing a decoding. You need to decode, like a mystery. You have to try to find out the answer to a certain mystery. So you need to do the decoding, okay, 解码 in Chinese, decoding. Because language is full of codes. So you need to do the opposite, to decode, okay, to unravel the mystery, the secret, to find out the answer, the solution, right? Okay. But when it comes to decoding, you need to know the sort of the genre. Genre, that's French. Genre means type, kind. Okay? Literature, even literature, has at least 3 broad types. We have fiction, the novel, for example. This is one type, one category, one genre. You have poetry. Poetry is another genre. Okay, poetry is another genre, another kind, another type. Then you have drama. You have play, right? You have tragedy. You have comedy. You have history, historical play. You even have romance. So play, drama is one type, one genre. Poetry is another type, another genre. And then fiction or story or novel is the other type, the other genre. Actually, if you are familiar with the word genre, Stephen, right? It's French, right? How do you say it in French?
Say because you have this, I have this the France accent, and you say it with the South accent.
So I say with the South accent.
Yes.
How about you? North accent?
No, it's the same.
The same genre?
Yes, genre.
Okay, genre. Okay, that's French. Okay.
In Paris, maybe they would say genre.
Genre. Okay.
It's not the same accent,
Okay.
but it's the same.
Okay, that's French. That means type, kind. Okay, category. Okay, so literature, at least 3 different separate genres in literature, according to the the Greek philosopher Plato, Aristotle, or even Socrates. They would say, okay, literature could be easily divided into 2 or 3 different separate genres. Poetry, drama, and fiction or the novel. So bear in mind, when you read a poem, the reading strategy, the reading experience Okay, reading strategy, the way to read a text, reading strategy. The reading strategy will be quite different from reading, let's say, a novel. If you read a novel, the reading strategy will be totally different from reading a poem. Did you follow me? Because they belong to different genre. So when you are reading is like a decoding. So when you are doing decoding, you need to know its code. The code could be very obvious or the code could be hidden. So genre obviously Steve might realize genre actually has a lot to do with the word. Ji. In Chinese, you ji, ji. Okay? Ji means what? Means birth. Birth. Okay? So you might know the very first book of the Bible. Adam, what is the title of the first book of the Bible?
The Old Testament.
The Old Testament, that's the whole Testament. I mean the very first book of the Old Testament. I have no idea.
Not religious.
Genesis.
Your ignorance really surprised me.
Genesis.
Very good. Okay? Don't take it too hard, okay? I'm just joking, okay?
No, I know.
Okay. Genesis. Okay? Genesis. Genesis is the very, very beginning book of the Bible. Of course, you might realize the Bible could be divided into two, okay? The Old Testament and then the New Testament. The New Testament begins with the story, the life of Jesus Christ. So you could say Jesus Christ is the watershed, the dividing line between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Okay, Adam? What kind of language of the Old Testament? If you have any idea?
The language that it was originally written in?
Yes. Is the Old Testament written in English?
No.
No, certainly not. The Old Testament is not written in English. Okay, in what language? Steve?
You said it.
Aramaic.
Arabic?
Aramaic.
Amharic?
Aramaic.
Amharic?
It's Aramaic.
What's that? What kind of language? Amharic?
Aramean?
Aramean?
Yeah.
Okay, Aramean? No. Actually, I beg your pardon?
Hebrew.
Excellent. Hebrew. Okay. Excellent. Very good. The Old
It's the Jewish language.
the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. Hebrew language in Hebrew. Okay. Of course, old Jewish language. Okay. Very ancient Jewish language. We call it Hebrew. That's the language used in the Old Testament. Okay? Adam, how about the New Testament?
I think that was written a few hundred years later, so that would be
English?
I definitely don't think it was English.
Okay, it's not in English.
It wouldn't be in any recognizable English.
Okay, not in English. So it's what language? Is okay? Anybody? The Old English, okay? No, the Old Testament was written in Hebrew. The New Testament, okay, was written in Greek. In Greek. Not in English, in Greek. Okay? But if you read the Old Testament, the very beginning book of the Old Testament is called Genesis. Genesis. Genesis come from the word root G. So what does G mean? Means birth. The Old Testament talks about the birth of the universe, the birth of human beings, how Adam was created by God, how Eve was created out of the jawbone of Adam, right? That's the Old Testament, the very beginning book, Genesis. Okay, so genre has a lot to do with G. Okay, so to read a genre correct, to read a poem, for example, in a correct manner, you need to know the so-called the generic code. Okay, you need to know the generic code. Okay, the generic code is embedded in a genre. A poem has its generic code. A play has its own generic code. Also, a short story has its own generic code. So you have to know the generic code. Later on, I'm going to explain to you what is meant by generic code. Okay? Aside from generic code, another code you need to be well read. You need to be familiar with. Otherwise, you just cannot read a text in a proper manner. The second code is called cultural. Okay, so bear in mind the two codes for you to deal with a text. A text, let me summarize once again. A text must belong to a certain genre. Okay, a text must belong to a certain genre. It could be a poem, it could be a newspaper article, it could be, a play, it could be any, But if you want to read a text in a proper manner, you need to know its generic code. Generic, we could call it generic is intrinsic, interior, inside, embedded in the text. This is called generic. How about cultural? Cultural, you could call it exterior, extrinsic, okay? Beyond the text. Could you follow me? So two types of codes you need to be familiar with in order to understand a text. Okay, Adam, do you read? Once it was a form, let's keep the line in italic. Then come to this. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Once it was a farm. I lived here once, grew up here in fact. I milked the cows, planted, dreamed.
Go
My
ahead.
father owned it and his father before him.
When he died.
When he died, I decided to sell. That money looked awfully good. But now seeing this factory, I miss the farm.
Okay. Then anybody here? Okay. Would you like to read this? The line in italics, please. Here at Acme. Go ahead. We manufacture
plastic, everything from
from wire,
to
elastics.
elastic.
Here. Last.
Last year we began to expand. We lined out 80,000 for this land. The factory you are about to enter is an
Ultra.
ultra-modern manufacturing center. going to create new products here. Plastic hats, flowers, and cans for beer.
Okay. I believe I gave you the handout last week. Okay. Some are missing last class, so I'm going to give this to you. Okay. This one for you, and one for you, and one for you. One for you and one for you too. Okay? You got this last week, right? Okay? Once it was a form. Now, you don't have to see the slide. Just read the text in the handout. Read once again. Okay? Once it was a form, you can read again. Okay? Please do the reading in 2 minutes. One student is looking for the right classroom. Okay, I'm going to phone her. Okay, send her a message. We are in room. Okay. We are in room. Okay. Send her a message. Okay. Okay. Now I believe you finished reading this text, right? You don't have to call it a poem. Just call it a text. A poem is also a text. Because later on, I want to emphasize once again why we don't want to call it a poem or literature. We just call it a text. Okay. A text here, this text here, happened to be a poem. Okay, a poem. Okay. Carl, can you tell me what did you find in this poem? What does the poem try to say? Anybody here? What does it try to say? Yes?
It's on 2 levels.
2 levels.
Yeah, and it represents two way of thinking about a situation.
2 way of thinking about a situation.
Yeah.
What kind of situation?
The situation is the writer.
The poet?
Yes,
The speaker?
the poet, I think.
Yeah, usually we say the speaker in the poem.
The speaker.
Okay, because the speaker in the poem is not necessarily the poet himself or herself. Okay? You know what I mean? Yeah, he create a person in the poem. We call it the speaker. Okay, the speaker in the poem. Okay, go ahead. Very good.
And we have a present situation and about
The past.
Yeah, yes, in the past.
Okay.
And through his dialogue, he's rewriting in the past and describing in the present.
Okay. Okay, very good. That's a very good observation. In other words, at least you realize you can see a contrast between the past and the present. Okay? A contrast between the past. So you have the past in the one hand, okay? You have the past, okay? And then you have the present, okay? Let's make it the past and then the present. past, Adam?
Well, there was a farm, and the speaker lived there and was raised there. They did lots of the manual labour themselves. However, as everybody does, the father died, and the speaker decided to sell the farm because he would receive a lot of money.
Okay.
But now he sees the what his childhood and what his factory, what his farm has become, and he doesn't like it.
Very good. So you see, another contrast. In the past, it was a farm. So the farm was the past. In the past, it was a farm. Now, it's a factory. So we have the past, right? We have the present. That's now. That's past. So a farm and a factory again forms a contrast. It's another contrast. Okay? So what does the farm suggest to you? What does the farm suggest to you?
An unpolluted natural environment from industrialization.
Okay, very good. Unpolluted natural environment before the industrialization. Actually, a farm refers to a certain way of living. A certain way of life. It's a way of life. What kind of way of life? Rural. A rural way of life. Okay? It's a rural way of life. A way of life. Okay? A way of life. And here we could call this way of life rural. The countryside. Okay, so life there will be very simple, easy, without much modern convenience, but very natural. Unlike, life in the modern society, we depend a lot of, on technologies, something that is very artificial, that is not very natural. That's called rural. Okay, that's called rural. And then a factory, another way of life. That's called urban, city, urban. So again, another contrast. On the one hand, you have an urban way of life. On the other, you have the city, urban, or the rural. On the one hand, you have the rural way of life. On the other, you have the urban way of life. So another contrast between the urban and the rural, between the country and the city. Right? Okay? So how do we call these kind of contrasts in our own thinking? What kind of adjective could you describe this type of, contrast? TLC. Okay? TLC. Here? No, here. You can sit here. Okay? This is the seat of honor for you. Okay? Okay? No. This is the seat for the queen. Okay? So how do we call this kind of thinking? This way of thinking? You have a contrast. You have a pair, right? Like you have good on the one hand, you have evil on the other. You have male on the one hand, you have female on the other.
Binary.
Excellent. This is called binary. Binary. Okay? Binary. Bi means two. We think in binary. Okay? So Adam would say, okay, I'm a man, and the girl just entered is a woman. That's binary. Okay? Adam would say, Dr. Chen, you're a good person. Whereas I'm evil. I'm a bad guy. So good and evil. Good and bad. Man and female. Man and woman. This is called binary. So when you want to read this point in a proper manner, I think binary is the key word. This is what we call reading strategy. Right? This is called reading strategy. Binary. Could you follow me? This is called reading strategy. Binary. Binary. So if you realize the poem was composed, using binary way of thinking. You have the past, you have the present. So all the sentences that talk about the past, you can notice the verb tense. Past tense refer to the past, then the present tense refer to the present. So you see another, in terms of language, you see another contrast, the past tense and the present tense. Okay? You have the past tense. Okay? You have the past tense. And you have the present tense. So, for example, once it was a farm. Was, past tense. Once it was a farm. I lived here once. Live, past tense. I grew up here, in fact. And then I milked the cow, I planted the tree, then I dreamed some big dreams. Again, refer to a leisurely way of life, a carefree way of life. Okay? You could milk the cow, you could plant the tree. Okay? Then you could, have your dream. You could dream your dream. Some way of life. Okay? And you could have this only in the countryside. Okay, only in the countryside. And then you have the sentence in italics. Okay, you have the sentence in italics. Here at Acme, we manufacture. Manufacture is the verb, is the present tense. We manufacture, we produce plastics. Okay, plastics. 塑胶用品. We manufacture. Everything from wire to elastics. Okay? In other words, this factory could produce everything in the line of plastics. And then last year we began to expand because the business is growing. So they expand the business. We lay out 80,000 for this land invested. Okay, we invested 80,000 for this land. The factory you are about to enter, another key hint. The factory you are about to enter is an extra modern, very modern manufacturing center. Here we have you, the factory, you are about to enter. Who is this you here? Who is this you here? Anybody here? Very good.
The reader.
The reader. Okay, the reader. Okay, the reader, the factory you are to enter, okay? You could be the reader. Very good. Who else? Who could be this you? Yes? The people who live there?
Before, they have the same memory.
Okay, could be referred to the neighbors. Okay, who else?
Humanity.
Humanity. Okay, humanity, you're talking about humanity in general, human being in general. Anybody here?
Future generation.
The future generation. No, the future generation is not born yet. It's not born yet. So who is this you? Okay? What's your English name?
Ashley,
Oh, Ashley. Okay. Ashley, who is this you?
the listener.
The listener? Okay, very good. The listener. What is this listener? Could be the speaker's friend. Okay? The speaker's friend happened to visit him, and the speaker's friend must be quite surprised. When I visited you last time, it was just a farmland. How could it become a factory today, a manufacturing center? So the place you are going to enter, you refer to the speaker's friend, or could be the speaker's neighbor.
Could it refer to the speaker?
The speaker.
Like
If
he's
no,
talking to
if the
himself,
speaker
right?
should be I, should be not be you.
But if he's trying to convince himself in the third person.
I think you are right. You could be any audience or any reader, but I don't think you refer to the speaker, because in this poem the speaker is speaking. Okay, so another important element for you to know is when we deal with a poem, you have to know who is speaking in the poem, the voice. The voice is important. Who is speaking? We know a certain speaker. Okay? And who is this speaker? The owner of this piece of land. He owned the land, right? The owner. He owned the land. And then what happened to this piece of land? He saw it. He saw the land. Why did he sell the land? Because the land sells well. A lot of money, a lot of fortune. And he belonged to the new generation, the speaker, because the father was a farmer. The father owned the land. The father before him owned the land. In other words, this piece of land is his family property, family heritage. It passed on and on from old generation to the new generation, right? But when this piece of land passed to this new generation, the speaker himself, like to Adam, for example. Adam, how about your father? Was your father a farmer? No. Steve, how about your father?
He was.
Okay, he was a farmer, or he's still a farmer.
He was in his retirement.
Oh, he was a farmer. What happened to your piece of land?
It's rented now to.
Okay, rented to someone else. Yeah, because the young generation, the young people, did not like to farm. I don't think Steve want to be a farmer. You try to get rid of being a farmer, right? That's the reason why you are here.
It's because when you want to be a farmer now, you need at least 50 hectares, and our farm was only 11. So
too small.
you can live on this.
You could not make a fortune.
Yes.
Okay. The key point is you think you could not make a fortune, but in your father's generation, they could live with a piece of land. Okay. So you see the value is changed. Okay. So Steve doesn't want to be a farmer. He wants to be a scholar. Okay. That's the reason why he's here. Okay. The same to the speaker. The speaker sold the piece, sold his family property for good money. So the money, you can read, the money here, the last 5 lines, okay, when he died, when my father died, I decided to sell the farm. That money looked awful. Awful, very good, right? Money always looks good to us. Is it right, Adam? Right? You work very hard to earn money because money looks very good. Okay? Strong sense of satisfaction when you get your paycheck. Okay? But now, that means that's the past. But now, seeing this, then there's a pause. See this factor. Now tell me why there's a pause here.
because he struggles to comprehend what it's become.
Okay, excellent. He struggled because he tried to find some word to describe what's ahead of him. This ugly factory, this manufacturing center, this is something that now doesn't matter. Okay, but see this, pause. This factory, some sense of regret. I miss that farm. So certainly, the speaker is telling us his experience of two ways of life. In the past, he used to live a rural way of life. Now, he is living an urban or modern life. And it would seem to us he would be happier by living a modern way of life. But the reality is he missed the old farm. Okay? This is what the poem is about. But the key element for you to understand is binary. Every line is written in terms of binary of thinking, even contrasts. This is called reading strategy. This is called how to deal with the text. You need to know its generic code. You need to know its cultural code. Of course, I did not give you the title of this poem. Yes?
I think in the end he tried to convince himself it was still a good idea because of the words hats, flowers and cans. It refers more than to a positive thing, joy, and it contrasts with. I think saying that he tries to convince himself it was still a good idea to build a factory because these words are positive. Mm-hmm. And when you see the
which word is positive?
hats, flowers, plastic hats, flowers with hats, flowers.
Don't forget, plastic hats. Plastic flowers. This is not a real flower. Plastic flowers.
Yes, it's. I think he tries to convince himself, even if plastic hats is a superficial thing.
Okay.
And cans, it's referred to parties to enjoy. But even if it's superficial, I think he tries to convince himself it was still a good idea because it contrasts with the end of the first word, to die, to awfully, it's negative and.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So from the word he used flower, you are thinking probably he regrets, but regrets only to some extent, right? Not really. He doesn't really regret. Probably, he think, okay, living a convenient modern way of life still have some good, benefits, good advantages. That's quite true. Yeah, you can read. So that's the reason why you need to read between the line. Okay. In other words, reading is not as easy, as simple as you imagine. You have to read between the line. Okay. But actually, what is emphasized here is, the binary way of thinking. Yes.
As who is the speaker of in the quotation?
Who is the speaker?
In the quotation.
The owner of the farm. He's the past owner. He saw the farm.
So
Okay.
the owner of the farm is now the owner of the factory, or
Is the owner of the factory. Actually, the point doesn't say whether he's the owner of the factory or not. He could be the owner. In other words, his status or his identity might change from farmer to a manufacturer. And it happens all the time. The past farmer become today's manufacturer. Could be. But don't forget, he sold the farm. He said it, right? He sold the farm. So when you use the word "so," I sold the farm with good money. That means the ownership of the farm was transferred. Otherwise, he would not say, I sold the farm. When you sold a house, okay, I sold my house last year. Could you say I still own the house? Probably not. Okay, so the farmer is the past farmer is today's manufacturer. Unless you could find evidences in the point to convince me. Otherwise, I would say no. Okay, the manufacturer could be another person. Okay, another person. But he happened to visit this factory with a friend. And when he see how a farm was transformed into a modern factory, then his sense of regret came out at the moment. At the point, describe his sense of regret. Because what happened is, a certain way of life disappeared. So actually you could say the poem talks about two ways of life. Which way of life is better? Hard to say. But actually different. One rural, one urban. Okay? Is urban way of life better than a rural way of life? It depends. It depends. Okay? But the sense of loss, the sense of regret is there. You could easily feel the speaker's sense of loss. Okay? I just use one good phrase from an English philosopher, Isaac Berlin, B-I-L-I-N. Isaac Berlin used to say, okay, we are doomed to choose. We are doomed to choose. We have to make a choice. We are doomed to choose. And every choice we make, may entail we are doomed to choose. And every choice we make may here. This is one of my favorite sentences. Okay? One of my favorite sentences. We are doomed to choose. Everybody needs to make a choice. And every choice we make may entail an irreparable loss. Irreparable means something you cannot call back. Something that is gone forever. Okay? Steve chose an English woman as his wife. Right? He made a choice.
But I wouldn't say it's irreparable loss.
What?
I wouldn't say it's.
Oh, okay. You wouldn't say irreparable, right?
Yeah. I would use the contrary.
Okay. Irreparable means something you cannot get it back. Okay? A computer, something you could not retrieve. Okay? 不能追回来的。Okay? We are doomed to choose. Okay? I always remember this sentence. Always. When I was put in a dilemma, when I have to make a choice, I always remember, whatever choice I make, a certain loss is going to happen. Okay? Irreparable loss. Actually, could be a good sentence for you.
Alright.
Yes. Okay. It sounds very, very true to everybody. I'm not sure whether you're familiar. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with a poem by a very famous American poet called Robert Frost. You remember the role not taken. The role not taken. Okay? You choose a certain role, and you always, miss a lot about the role you did not take. The role not taken. That's very, basic human psychology. Right?
It's very strange. The author of the quote, he deliberately choose the negative hand. It could have chose instead of irreparable, choose a wonderful gain. Or I mean, it choose the negative way.
Okay.
It could have.
But don't you think this is quite true? In terms of human experience.
But,
Okay, now let me give you a very simple question. Did you regret marrying your current wife? Never. What?
Except when
Don't say except. Don't say except. If you have accept, then that means you regret. Okay? Then you regret. Right? So this is irreparable.
loss for okay. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So again, textual power. I'll tell you how to deal with the textual power. Okay. So I think as I mentioned to you, this is a 3-hour period class, and there's just an interval, a recess in between for 20 minutes. Okay. So let's take a short break. That's what I said. Actually, you are here to learn how to deal with the text, how to deal with the text. But don't forget, the title of the course is called Literature and the Teaching of English. You have to have this in mind. Literature and the teaching of English. In other words, the purpose of this course is to teach you why we need to use literature in your teaching of English, pretending in the future you will all take English teaching, language teaching as your career. Okay? And when you teach English, why you need to use literature? But when you think about the title, you might feel quite intimidating. You might feel quite frightened because you will say, "Sir, I have no passion for literature. I don't like literature. I am not a person of literature. Because literature is too difficult. Because literature is far beyond me. Very difficult. Because literature is something in the air. Because literature has no real value. Literature is not practical at all. I think all these reasons make sense to me. Okay? Many people, when they think of literature, they think literature is something in the air, something that has no practical value, something that is just out of our own imagination. So a lot of people will say, who would study literature? Who would read literature? Only crazy people like me. Okay? If you want to study literature, people will say, are you a nut? Are you an idiot? Why literature? So obviously, nowadays, when you think of literature, you will say literature is not useful. You will say literature is not very practical. But why still literature in the teacher of English? There are many reasons for doing this. One very simple reason is, when I say literature, I will always say literature with a small L. Okay? Don't use literature, don't write literature with a big L. Because if you write literature with a big L, 不要大写, then it will be very frightening. With a small L, literature with a small L, that means it means any types, any kind of texts. The text could be a poem. The text could be a short story. Or the text could be just a poster, an advertisement, even an advertisement, okay? Or a newspaper article, a text. Later on, I'm going to show you actually literature in or before the 18th century doesn't refer to literature today. Literature before the 18th century, literature referred to any kind of polite learning. That's literature. Later on, I'm going to show you the history of the word literature itself. Okay? Literature has its modern meaning only appears in the late 18th or early 19th century. In English literature, what we call the Romantic period. So when you think of literature as something that is imaginative, something that is beyond you, that's beyond your understanding, this modern sense of literature only appears after the Romantic period. And unfortunately, we are all living after the Romantic period, the so-called post-Romantic period. So we are all affected, influenced by the Romantic notion of literature. Before that, okay, Shakespeare would never say, I am writing poetry, I am writing literature. No. Okay? So just bear in mind, before the Romantic period, literature referred to polite learning, referred to any type, any kind of writing. That's what is meant by me, literature with a small L. So instead of calling it a literature, I prefer to use the term, the text. So you are here to learn how to include a text, a good text, a proper text into your teaching of literature. That's the key. Okay? So when it talks about the texts, just give you some review of what I did last week. 3 aspects of textual study. In other words, there are 3 separate and related ability in dealing with the texts. The very beginning level we call reading. Reading is a very fundamental ability, the very basic. When you come upon a text, you need to be able to read a text. This is called texts. And this is called reading. So what is reading? We produce text within texts. Okay? So when we do reading, we are producing a text within text. You don't have to write down, it's all in your Moodle system. It's all there. Okay? I uploaded it, okay, 2 or 3 days ago. You don't have to take notes. Okay? Could you follow me? It's all there. It's all in the Moodle system. Okay? And then the second ability, an ability that to me is a little bit higher than reading, is called interpretation. We produce, when we do the reading, when we do the interpretation, that means we produce texts upon texts, not within the texts. Text upon text, based upon the text, we can interpretation. And then even the highest ability is called criticism, criticizing. That means we produce texts against texts. You can criticize a certain text, say the text is anti-something. You don't like the text, you can criticize the text. Okay, like you just said, okay, because you see the flower in text, so probably the speaker love, the modern way of life, love of urban life. You can do that. But obviously, from my reading experience, there's just the opposite. Okay? So these are the 3 aspects of textual study. We are doing textual study here. Okay? And then let me show you what is meant by reading. Reading is actually based upon a knowledge of all the codes that were operative in the composition of any given text. The key point is code operative. When you read a text, you need to know how the codes in the text operate. So I just mentioned 2 types of codes. The generic codes, the codes embedded in the texts, and then what else? The cultural code. Okay? So a knowledge of all the codes that were operative, the key word is operative in the composition of any given texts. And then the historical situation in which it was composed, it was written. Okay? Reading involved the knowledge of 2 types of codes, generic code and cultural code. That's the key. So throughout this semester, we are learning how to do with the texts. In other words, you are developing, you acquire some knowledge of generic and cultural codes when you come upon a certain text. Okay? This is called reading. So when you are doing reading, bear in mind, you need to know its generic code. You need to know its cultural code. I give you a certain short story, for example, a short story by Hemingway, for example. Later we are going to try that. I give you a certain short story by Hemingway. First of all, you have to know, oh, it's a short story. It's a short story. It's a genre. It's a short story. When you read a short story, your reading strategy must be different from reading a poem. Very different. Because when you read a short story, what is the key? From whose angle, from whose perspective is the story told? So perspective is the key. Okay? If the story is told by Ashley, or by me, or by Adam, I think we 3, when we tell the same story, you might get 3 separate versions of the story. Therefore, truth is never absolute. Truth is always relative. Okay? You cannot say, I'm 100% correct. No, nobody is 100% correct. This is called relativism. Okay? In other words, truth is relative. Truth is never absolute. Different storyteller with different life experience, with different background, would describe or tell the same story, but produce different versions. Okay, so perspective is important. Okay, this is reading part. Okay, then after reading part, we have the interpretation. This activity depends upon the failures of reading. What does it mean? The failures of reading. Because when you read texts, you are bothered, you are disturbed by some line, or by some metaphor, or by some symbol, or even by some cause. You have some sense of frustration, some sense of failure. I am not a good enough reader because I failed to understand the point of what the writer tried to say. The sense of failure, that you work very hard trying to cope with the situation. Okay? So it is the feeling of incompleteness on the reader's part that activates the interpretation process. Why you want to interpret? Because you will say, okay, it's more than what just appeared in print. It's more than that. Okay? So you remember all the story for children. We call children's books or children's story. At the end of the children's story, there's always a moral. A moral. Okay? For example, the fox and the sour grapes. This is a story called the fox and the sour grapes. The fox could not reach the grapes, so the fox walked away by saying, "Oh, the grapes must be sour." And then at the end, there's a moral, moral lesson for young children, because young children could not understand what the story is about. What does the story try to say? So there's at the end, there's always a moral lesson. When it comes to the moral lesson, it becomes an interpretation. And I believe as a young child or as young children, they might not be able to know what's behind the story. Incompleteness, okay? Incompleteness. This is called interpretation. So, when would you begin to interpret a text? When you feel that you cannot 100%, you cannot understand what the text is about. There's some sense of frustration, some sense of failure on your part. And you try very hard. I had to dig out the secret. I had to unravel the code, for example. Is it clear? That's called interpretation. And then, when we move to the last part, criticism. This is the most difficult part. That's the reason why we would say, when it comes to university education, when it comes to college education, what's the purpose of a university education? To cultivate the young people critical ability, critical, thinking, 批判思考. This is always part of the training in the university. You come here to develop your critical thinking. That's called criticism. So criticism involves a critique. Critique means judgment, okay, in a negative sense. Criticism involves a critique of the themes developed in a given fictional text, or critique of the code themselves, out of which a given text has been constructed. In other words, when you read a certain text by Hemingway, a short story by Hemingway, for example, later on, when I try to work with you about a certain text by Hemingway, you might realize Hemingway actually is a male chauvinist. The man is the center, the woman is, the marginal. This Hemingway's perception of the gender. So when you read any Hemingway text, you will say, Hemingway is not fair. Hemingway is, not right, because he's a male chauvinist. So in other words, instead of being carried away by the author himself, carried away 就被带走了. Instead of being carried away by the author himself, you as a reader could rise above the text and criticize the text. This is called criticism. Could you follow me? Like Adam could say, Dr. Chen, I don't like your way of teaching. I think your teaching or your interpretation is biased. You can argue with me. This is called criticism. Okay? It is called criticism. And when you deal with any text, you can do this. Okay? You send me part of your thesis. I will make some negative comments. I will criticize your thesis, for example. This is called criticism. Could you follow me? And critical thinking, to me, is a is a higher ability. Okay. So this is called textual study. Just bear in mind the three. Okay. So you see here textual power. So you are here to learn textual power, and then when you deal with the text, you have decoding and decoding. So reading to me is a kind of decoding. You need to decode, okay? 解码. To be well read, one needs to know. No is missing here. One needs to know the generic code and the cultural code of a certain text. To know, K-N-O-W, no is missing here. One needs to know. You need to know the generic and cultural code. So bear in mind these two types of code, the generic code and the cultural code. In other words, if you have any difficulty reading the text, there must be something wrong with your knowledge, either of the generic code or the cultural code. If you are well read in the generic code and the cultural code, I believe you are able to do with the text. Okay? Okay. Just give you some further example. Okay, so here. Okay. 刚刚哪些地方 ？Okay. This for you. This for you. Okay. This is for Ashley. Okay. 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 We did work together with 40 Love last week. Okay. Then there's another poem on the back, but I would like to restart with 40 Love once again. Okay. We did this last week, but most of you were absent. Okay. 40 Love. Okay, Ashley, could you read 40 Love for us? Even though you are not in your 40s, you are still in your 20s. Okay. Read 40 Love for us. 18. Okay, you are always 18. Forever young, okay? Go ahead. Read this for us. 40 Love.
40 Love, middle age, couple playing tennis. When the game ends and they go home, the net will still be between them.
Very good. Very good. Okay. As an 18-year-old girl, you are wonderful. Okay, because you can read the text. Adam, would you like to try once again? With some emotion, okay? Pretending you are in your early 40s, okay?
40 Love. Middle-aged couple playing tennis. When the game ends and they go home, the net will still be between them.
Excellent. Very good. Okay. Okay, let's look at just the shape of the text itself. The shape. Okay, you don't have to be bothered with the content at the moment. Just look at the shape. 形状. Okay, actually, what does the shape look to you? The shape itself. The shape, the form itself. The form.
Two lines.
Okay, you know, a couple are doing something, right?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
They're playing tennis.
Okay, they are playing tennis. A couple, okay, are playing tennis. They are playing tennis. So does the shape of the text look like a tennis court? Yes or no?
Yeah.
It looks like a tennis court. Okay, the shape itself, it's a tennis court. Okay. Collins.
Yeah.
Do you play tennis?
No.
No? Do you know tennis court?
Yeah.
Okay, draw a map for us. A picture of a tennis court. Okay? Any person can do that. Okay? Tennis court. Okay, very good. It looked like a square, or it looked like a rectangular, right? Okay, yeah, very good. Okay, this is the net here. Okay, and this is the tennis court. The point shaped like this, except there's no net here. Okay, so the point looks like this. So the couple are playing tennis court. Okay, so middle-aged couple playing tennis. They are playing tennis. Okay, when the tennis ends, and they go home, the net will still be between them. I think the key point is when you come upon the text, you come to realize, oh, the point is shaped in this manner on purpose. In other words, the writer, the poet, designed the poem, write the poem on purpose in this manner, just to let you know the poem, the text looks like a tennis court. Okay, like a tennis court, 一个方形的 tennis court. Okay, could be 长方形, could be 正方形的 tennis court. Okay, and then you have two sides, one here, one here, or one here, one here. Okay, this side could be the husband, this side could be the wife, or this side could be the husband, this side could be the wife, and they are playing tennis. Imagine there is the net here, okay, the net here. So the net certainly becomes a very important symbol. Why? When you play tennis, there's a net. The net is more or less like an obstacle, a barrier. So you have to hit the ball high enough above the barrier, the obstacle, right? So the net is a barrier, is an obstacle. So in this poem, the net turned out to be very symbolic. Something that is between the husband and the wife, between the boy and the girl. Ashley has a good boyfriend, but there's always a net between you and your boyfriend, right?
Yeah.
You have some secret to hide from him.
Sure.
Yeah, by all means. So she's not 100% frank, honest with her boyfriend. There's something to hide from the boyfriend. In other words, the net, the obstacle, the barrier is still there. Could you follow me? Okay, tennis court. Okay? Yes.
Could you
Yes, you
say?
have something different to say, right?
No. I'm thinking about it a bit deeper. Could you say the shape of the poem changes the meter of the poem, and it disassembles any actual rhythmic meter, which means that it shows the inequality and the failure to communicate. in a relationship.
Very good. Yes. Yes. So even the shape, of the poem shows that there's always some distance. Some distance. You're right. Okay, distance. Yes. Okay, distance. They have to be far apart. Okay, stay far apart. The distance. Okay.
And also, if I'm going to criticise you a bit, you can, if you can look at the poem, it almost looks as if two armies are about to meet on a battlefield.
Okay, good. Very good. Yes, two armies are marching, ready to fight. Right. Okay.
But the net stops them.
Yeah, very good.
So the net is left.
Yeah, so the net is not there. Okay, so they are about to fight. Okay, the husband is going to beat the wife, and the wife might have to fight back. Very good. Yes, you can make this kind of argument. Yes, I think it says a lot to Steve, right? Right? The poem says a lot to you, right?
Yes. Yes, it reminds me of.
I beg your pardon?
It reminds me of a lot. Yeah.
Okay, reminds you of your current situation. Okay, so the poem reminds Steve of his relationship with the wife. All right, reminds you, says a lot to you. Again, the title itself. Okay, Collins doesn't play tennis, so Collins might not know the real meaning of 40 love. 40 love, you could say, talks about love in early 40s. The husband must be in early 40s. The wife must be in early 40s. 中年人的爱情 40 love. But if you are familiar with tennis score, the score is 40 to love. That means 0. Okay? 40比0. Love means 0. We don't say 0, we say love. Okay? The key point is, who scores love, who scores 40? You will say, of course, the wife scores 40 because the wife is more powerful. But Steve said, no, the man scores 40, not the wife. So who scores 40? We cannot tell. In fact, we cannot tell. Okay? In other words, who is the winner, who is the loser, nobody knows. It leaves for the reader. You can make your own judgment. Okay? Steve would argue the man scores 40, but actually we just argue the opposite. No, not the man. The man is 0. The woman is 40. Okay? Would you make this kind of argument?
Sure.
Yeah, so the text is open. The text is open. So that's the reason why eventually, I'm going to let you know eventually, why literature and the texts and the teaching of English. You did read the handout I gave to you. 2 types of language. One is called representational, one is called referential. Because if you happen to use a text like this, some short poem like this, then you might be able to arouse, stimulate your student's imagination. And a student will learn better if his or her imagination is stimulated, is aroused, is motivated. In other words, if a student is motivated, then he will learn, or they will learn better. How to motivate? By giving them texts with representational language. So again, why literature in the teaching of English? Okay, now we have different interpretation. We have Ashley's interpretation. We have Stefan's. We have Adam's interpretation. Different. So you begin to argue about what the poem means, right? Then your imagination, your motivation is aroused in this manner because you are engaged in some kind of discussion. You are engaged in some kind of debate. So engagement is the key. If you use this kind of text, you will be able to engage your student. So bear in mind, as a teacher, engagement is the key. If you cannot engage your student, then you are dead. You are doomed as a teacher. Is it clear? Okay, let's turn it over. Okay, let's turn it over. Okay? They might find it difficult to read this. Okay? This is by another very weird poet, American poet, E. Cummings. Okay? Adam, read this for us.
How would you like me to do it? Would you like me to make the sounds or read?
Read.
Just read it? Okay. La, le, af, fa, l, s, on, one, in s.
Okay. What does it mean? We have no idea. I have no idea what you mean by this. What does it mean? Actually, you are a good reader. What does it mean? What does it say to you here?
The code.
The leaves fall.
Leaves. Only leaves. Falls.
Okay, you just read the words in parentheses. A leaf
Leaf.
falls.
Falls.
A leaf falls from the tree. A leaf falls, right? So imagine a certain leaf is falling from the tree. A leaf falls. Is it clear? A leaf falls. Then you put the rest together. Loneliness. Loneliness. So that's the poet's feeling of being lonely. Okay? You feel lonely. Sense of loneliness. Then the poet used the image. When you see a leaf falls from a tree, then the falling of a leaf suggests to the poet that is his strong sense of being lonely. Okay? And if you look at the shape of the poem, you can see a certain leaf is falling this way from the above, from the tree down to the earth. Could you follow me? So even from the shape of the poem itself, you can learn a lot. Clear, not clear? I do believe, Adam, I know you are a language teacher, right?
Yes.
Just produce this to your student. Make a good guess. What does it mean?
I could try.
Very, very difficult to read.
Yes.
This is the point written not for you to read, but for you to see, for you to imagine. Use your imagination. And that's the poet's sense of loneliness. He feels lonely, and he used the image, the metaphor, a leaf falls. Okay. So what's your image of being lonely, Steve? When you feel lonely, what comes to your mind? Could you, compare your loneliness to something else?
The problem is I like loneliness, so
Oh, you like loneliness.
yes.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
uh,
I don't think I don't think loneliness.
but I feel loneliness when I am in a crowd.
You are in a crowd. Okay, very good, very philosophical. He feels alone. He feels lonely when he's in the crowd among the people. Okay. I don't think you enjoy loneliness. I think the right word to say is solitude.
Yes.
You enjoy solitude. You enjoy to be yourself, to be alone. Okay? But that doesn't mean loneliness. Okay? But you are very philosophical. You enjoy being alone among the crowd.
Mm.
Okay, very, very philosophical. Okay. Adam, what's yours?
Loneliness.
What does loneliness mean to you?
The lack of something.
Lack of something. Okay.
The lack of something which makes a person who they are.
No, I'm asking you to use a certain metaphor, a certain image to describe your loneliness.
Oh, okay. A lone tree in a barren wasteland.
A long tree
In a barren wasteland.
in a barren wasteland. Okay, I think wasteland must be barren. Okay, a long tree in a wasteland. Okay, said to suggest to Adam his sense of loneliness. Okay, to Steve is a solitary figure in the crowd. Very good. Okay, how about you?
Type a paragraph on Facebook.
What?
Type a paragraph
A
on,
type of paragraph in
on
a
Facebook.
in Facebook.
In Facebook.
Okay, yeah, okay. A solitary figure in the crowd. How about you, Miss Ye? Your sense of loneliness. What comes to your mind when you feel alone? What kind of picture comes to your mind? 孤独的感觉像什么样一个照片？一个图片？ Like a what? Mountain, like a mountain, okay? Like a mountain. Okay. So you think a mountain is lonely. Okay. It suggests to you a mountain. Good. So one very fundamental question is, why literature in the teaching English? Why literature? Okay? In other words, we are talking about the purpose of this course. Why literature? And you might also want to ask me why. As a language teacher, why do I include literature? Okay? So you have to know a little bit about literature in keywords. Keywords, I would suggest, is a very important text. If you are interested in the origin, in the social history of a certain term, like culture, for example. Culture is a big word, very big. Literature is another big word, right? Culture, literature, or, for example, industry is a big word. If you are interested in knowing the historical, the social development history of a certain word, then keywords is the right book. Okay, keywords is the right book for you. Next week I can bring keywords for you to look at, okay? A book by Raymond Wells, a very famous, of course, he's dead now, but Raymond Wells is one of the most influential, cultural critic, okay, or theorists. When we talk about culture studies in the UK setting, in the British setting, they would always remember Raymond Wells, okay, a big shot in terms of British culture studies, okay, in terms of British culture studies, 英国文化研究, okay. I used to teach culture studies many years ago while I was teaching at National Science University to graduate students. That's about 10 or 15 years ago. I used to teach a lot of Raymond Wells. You might be surprised, for my PhD dissertation, the theoretical basis is Raymond Wells. I used a lot of Raymond Wells for my PhD dissertation, okay? At that time, he was still alive and already very influential, okay? Ask any English scholar, Raymond Wells, okay? They would be able to tell you something about Raymond Wells. So actually, what I'm going to say about literature comes from keywords, okay, comes from keywords. Did I give you the handout last week, yes or no? I believe so, right? You received literature, right?
Literature, yeah.
Okay. So this will be literature. Let's see.
No, the other one. Literature.
Okay. Yeah, I think you do have copies of literature. So So do you a literature? No? Okay, I will give it to you next time, okay? I'm going to make, I know. You do have this right to literature? Yes, 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 okay? This is not that easy to read. Yeah, because it covers a lot of social history of the key word, okay? Literature is a key word, very important key word, okay? Okay, so what is literature according to keywords, according to your words? Today, when we think of literature, we think of something that is imaginative, something that is created by the writer. Okay? Or we would even argue literature has nothing to do with social practice. Literature has nothing to do with reality. That is the reason why a lot of people would argue literature has no use. Literature is useless because literature has no practical value. Could you follow me? That's our modern sense of literature. Fiction, poetry, drama, literature. Who care to read poetry? Who care to read drama? Who care to read fiction? If you are well read in fiction, you could not make money. Right? Adam, could you make some money by reading fiction? No, certainly not. So you would argue literature is something that is up in the air. Literature is useless. Literature has no practical value. So as a language teacher, you would try to ignore, to forget. You would even be frightened by literature yourself. You would argue as a language teacher. Like Ashley she's also a language teacher, Adam, like you. Okay? You are a language teacher and you never use literature.
I have now.
No, after my class.
Yeah, I use
Yes,
all groups
but
of innocence.
in the past, you never used literature in the teacher of English. Ashley never used that. Ashley told me literature is too difficult. Literature is something that is beyond my understanding.
No,
No?
it's too difficult for the children.
No, it depends what kind of literature you choose. Right? No, it depends. I think text selection is another important key.
Yeah.
Okay, this is another issue. If you choose proper texts, I think should not be any problem. Like you are teaching kids, young kids.
Yes.
Okay. I used to teach young kids myself, and you might be surprised to learn I have a young daughter myself. Okay, very young. Okay, I have a very young daughter. She is still in the elementary school. Okay, surprising to you, right? I seldom mention my young daughter because people keep asking me, by which wife? Then I have to explain a lot. Okay? So too complicated for me to tell you something personal. Okay?
And it's very difficult if she's there as well.
And it's very difficult to explain. Okay? But she's reading literature every week. She's reading literature every week. So I don't think too difficult. Depends on the kind of text you choose. That's the reason why we are children literature. Why call it children literature? Appropriate for children. So the key point is, don't think if I use literature in my teacher English, it's too difficult. We, in particular, designed this course just to get rid of your sense of fear. You are all frightened by literature because you always think literature with big L. You think literature in terms of Shakespeare, Yes, Shakespeare could be too difficult for you. You think of literature in terms of George Eliot. George Eliot could be too difficult for you. Or you think of literature in terms of James Joyce. Who reads James Joyce is too difficult for you? Ulysses, for example. So if you think of literature with big L, then you might think literature is too far beyond the comprehension, the understanding of your student. So that's the reason why I want you to trace back to the origin of the word literature itself. Now we have a keyword called I'm sure you are familiar with these three words. Literate. Are you literate? Yes or no?
You mean I can read words?
If you are literate, that means you are educated. Okay? Literate. Illiterate means uneducated. I could call my parent, they are illiterate. They cannot read, they cannot write, illiterate. And we have the keyword literacy. Literacy means the ability to read and write. That's literacy. Okay? So a very simple definition of literacy is the ability to read and write. If you can read and write, then you are a literate person. If you can't, then you are illiterate. So don't forget, literate, illiterate, and literacy all comes from literature. So actually, literature comes from the word, comes from letter. A man of letters. Now we have the term a man of letters. Adam, if I call you a man of letters, what do I mean?
You mean that I have the ability to understand what it actually represents?
There's more than that. When I call you a man of letters, I mean you are a scholar. So a man of letters doesn't refer to a person who loves to write emails, who loves to write letters to other friends. No, here letters means scholarship, learning, 学问, a man of letters. Okay, so literature actually comes along with letter. So letter, literature, literate, or literacy, illiterate, they come from the same word root. 字源字根 the same. Okay, and as I mentioned to you, literature before the Romantic period, literature means polite learning. You learn something in order to be polite, to be a gentleman, to be a lady. That's what literature is meant. Okay, so even according to Plato, Aristotle, literature is to instruct and to delight. What is the purpose of literature? To instruct, to make you a better person. To instruct you, to give you some knowledge, some information, and to please you, to delight. Okay? So the very old function, the very traditional function of literature, if you are well read in Plato, in Aristotle, then they have a very good notion of what literature is for. Literature is to instruct and to delight. Poetry is to instruct and to delight. Drama is to instruct and to delight. Okay? To instruct and to delight. And so I mentioned to you, before the 18th century in the West, literature referred to any kind of polite learning. Literature refers to any piece of writing. I'm not sure whether you are familiar with actually check who is the author. The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire.
People.
Excellent. Edward Gibbon. You're great. Okay, I'm surprised to learn that you know the author. Yes, Edward Gibbon. Edward, okay? Okay, Edward Gibbon, a very well-known English historian of the 18th century. He wrote, I think this is one of his most influential books, called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. In Chinese, 罗马帝国兴亡史. Don't forget, I major in English literature. Okay? My PhD degree is in English literature. But I was asked when I, registered for a course called 18th century seminar on 18th century English literature. I did take a course called seminar because this for graduate students. Seminar on 18th century English literature. I was asked by my professor to read The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. It talks about the Roman history, the history of the Roman Empire. And Gibbon wrote the book not because he thought he was a writer, but because he thought he was a historian. But the book could be read as a piece of literature. So my key point is, actually, literature before the Romantic period referred to any kind of writing, any piece of polite writing. Okay? So that's the reason why I want to tell you, when you want to include literature in your teaching of English, you could defend yourself. You could make good argument for yourself. Yes, I'm using literature for my teaching of English, but sorry, I'm using literature with a small L. You are not using literature with a big L. In other words, you could argue, I'm not teaching Shakespeare to my student. Even teaching Shakespeare is no harm. It should be innocent. But people would argue. I did remember the founder of this university once told me, okay, when I came to this university for the first time, the founder of this university told me, Dr. Chen, your department, referring to the Department of Foreign Language and Literature, is too literature oriented. Too literature oriented. And many young people do not like literature. Don't teach Shakespeare. That's what I learned from him. Don't teach Shakespeare. I think Shakespeare was quite, the scapegoat. 代罪羔羊. But this, he is the founder, must be very smart, well read, but he still has these kind of misconception about literature. Let alone parents, just the ordinary people. Okay? So if you are a language teacher, if you try to include literature in your teaching of English, now you feel a lot of pressure from the parents, from other colleagues, even from the administrators. They would argue with you. You are teaching something that has no value. You are teaching something that is useless because literature has no value, because literature is not practical. And to me, it doesn't make any sense. Okay? So one good strategy for you to defend yourself, yes, I'm teaching literature, but sorry, I'm teaching literature with a small L. Or you can even get real literature. You are teaching texts. Okay, so I start with textual power. Yes?
You could refer to it in the Old English, Bokreef.
In the what?
Bookcraft, Old English,
Mhm.
because literature replaced the word in England in 1779.
Mhm.
And before that, in Old English, it was referred to as Bokreef, which is bookcraft in modern English.
Yes,
This
yes.
is just called bookcraft.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, that's true. So I'm just trying to simplify the long history of the word literature itself. It has a long history, okay? But the separation between literature and society. Literature used to be closely related to social life, to social practice. So my way of teaching, especially in terms of literature, I always try to put literature in a certain social context. Because literature has a lot to do with social practice. Literature has a lot to do with social or historical reality. It's not just something imaginative, exists only on the brain of the writer. No, that's not true. Literature is closely related to society, to social life, to social reality. When did it happen that literature is separated, is divorced from social reality, social life? It only occurred during the Romantic period. And you might like to know when is the Romantic period actually? Actually, you are very good in English literature, right? Tell me when is the Romantic period actually?
Oh, we forgot.
You just forgot today, right?
No.
Yeah, you will remember tomorrow, right? Okay? The Romantic period starts. Okay, good.
Was it in Germany?
No, we're talking about English literature.
Yes, but the notion of modern literature
Okay?
as
Go ahead.
a cultural identity
Okay, go ahead.
began in Germany.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, began in Germany. I mean, when? When did?
Oh,
I'm talking about the period of the Romantic,
18th
literature.
century, late 18th century.
Of course, late 18th, early 19th century, right? But for convenience sake, okay, 为了方便, which years marked the beginning of the Romantic period? That's the point. Anybody here? Yes?
1812.
1812? Okay, quite close. Okay.
1813.
1813. Okay, very close.
About associated with not
Okay.
Was it the founding of the printing press?
That's far earlier. That's in the 15th century. Okay. Yeah.
Commercialization of the printing press?
Okay. Wait. Yes. Wait.
1820.
Okay, Steve, tell me, okay, as a friend, tell me the significance of 1789.
It's French. It's the start of the French Revolution.
Very good. Very good.
They took the jail called it was the revolt of the peasants.
Mm-hmm.
They went to the famous jail called Bastille
Bastille.
and to free
The prisoners.
and to protest against.
Okay, okay. At least you are literate because you know the date, the series of the date as a French. If you say, sir, I have no idea about 1789, I would say, Steve, you are not literate at all. Okay? Yeah, ignorant. I'm not saying ignorant, okay? You say ignorant to you, not okay, not me, okay? 1789 is a crucial year in our understanding of Western civilization, of Western history. 1789 is the beginning year of the French Revolution. Okay? What happened during the French Revolution? The king was beheaded.
Yes, lots of.
Which king? Which king was beheaded?
Louis XVI.
Okay, very good.
And
Louis XVI was beheaded. Louis 就被砍头. Okay, yeah.
he's very alike our actual presidents. I mean, his
Yeah.
their
Louis
face
wa-
are nearly the same. So let's
Okay, Louis XVI was beheaded. Okay? The first king who was beheaded by the common people. By the common people, by people like you and me. Okay? So this French Revolution starts the real democracy in a sense in the West. Okay? We have the notion of democracy. Democracy, according to Abraham Lincoln. What is democracy, Adam? You are aware in Abraham Lincoln, right? According to
I
his
know
definition.
the Aristotelian
Hmm?
version of democracy, but I'm not well versed in American democracy.
Okay,
because they're not-
democracy by Abraham Lincoln. He has very, very simple definition. What is democracy?
Government
A government
is
of the people,
forward.
by the people, and for the people. Of the people, by the people, and for the people. This is democracy. The people, the common people. So that's the reason why 1789 is that crucial. Because the king was beheaded by the common people. Now the common people, okay, became the ruling class. It used to be the aristocracy. It used to be the noble, right? But not the common people, okay, could rule the country. So this year was crucial, okay? So usually when they talk about the romantic literature in England, okay, they always started with 1789 and then end with just about 50 years, less than 50 years. That's the period we call romantic literature in English literature. Okay? Just a short period. But this period was a period of commotion, a period of disturbance. Okay? Commotion, disturbance, disruption. Okay? In other words, a very, very, how to put it, a very dramatic, a very, how to use the right word, with big fluctuation, up and down, the kind of, volatile. Okay, yeah, volatile could be the right word, yes. Okay, the French Revolution, the Romantic period, okay? And then you have several important points. You have William Blake. You have William Wordsworth. Okay? You have John Keats. You have Lord Byron. You have Shelley. All these are the important major English poets of the Romantic period. Okay, these poets, what happened to these poets? They wrote poetry, but they came to realize their poetry was not read, was not appreciated by the readership, Don't forget, as industrial revolution continued, it produced some new classes, right? And people became more and more literate. They began to be able to read and write. So we have more and more at that time audience, readership, but not many audience, not many readers could read poetry. So eventually, these poets, the Romantic poets, because their poetry was not read, because their poetry was not appreciated by the common people, they began to develop some kind of, we call mechanism, defense mechanism. They say, okay, these common people, they were just too ignorant. They just could not read our poem. Too ignorant. I don't want these ignorant people as my reader. So they began to separate, to devote literature from society. Okay? On the one hand, you have social reality. On the other, you have literature. So literature is something far beyond social life, far beyond social reality. So I would argue the very separation of literature from social reality starts during the Romantic period.
Thanks, Franz.
Is it clear? So nowadays, when we think of literature, we think of literature that has no social bearing. There is no social value. There is nothing to do with social reality. Okay? You could ask yourself, what comes to your mind when you think of literature? You say, oh, literature is something that has no real value, something that has no practical value, like Ashley. Ashley told me she doesn't like literature.
No.
Because she says, sir, I could not use literature to make money. So to her, making money is more important. And unfortunately, to her, literature cannot generate money. But to me, the experience is just opposite. Okay? I earn money because of my knowledge in literature. But the key point is, literature began to separate itself, divorce itself from social life, from social reality in the Romantic period. And I just told you the reason why. That kind of defense mechanism. Because they found their poetry could not be appreciated by the common people. Is it clear? And now we are still living in the so-called post-Romantic period. Okay, so we are all affected by this romantic way of thinking. Not just we, the majority are still affected. So if you approach our president, okay, if you happen to approach our president, you ask, Mr. President, what do you think of literature? The president says, oh, literature is something in the air, something that's, intangible, something that is beyond my understanding, even though he is a university president. Could you follow me? In other words, he has some misconception about literature. And this all comes from the Romantic poets. So one important purpose of this class is for me to help you get rid of this kind of misconception. You could make a very good argument for yourself. Do you have an idea, definite idea about the social history of the world literature itself? Tell people. No, literature doesn't mean this. Not until the Romantic period. Before the Romantic period, literature is closely related to social reality, to social life. That's the reason why even, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire is even today read as literature. Even though Gibbon wrote the book, not as a literature writer, but as a historian. Okay? Is it clear? Did I make my point clear enough for you? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, very good. You're too silent.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, now just remind you of my part of my homework. Okay. We have no, not for next week. Okay, for this semester. We have 9 people, okay? I guess that's about the right class, okay? The right size of the class. We have 9 people. Because you are here to develop your textual power. You are here to develop your textual power. So one purpose is to demonstrate you have some textual power. So I would ask you not now, probably some weeks later, to form a group, okay? You are going to form 2 groups, okay? Adam might take like 4 students, 4 classmates as your group, or Ashley might take another 3 or 4 as your group. Don't say no to me. To me.
I'm as busy as a bee.
Everybody is busy, don't worry. It's quite a few weeks away, okay?
But I don't want to be the leader.
You don't, I know, I don't want you to be the leader. I just give you as one example, okay? Adam doesn't want to be a leader as well, okay? I mean, Adam or Ashley could take some classmates as your group, okay? And for a certain group, just do what I'm doing today, okay? You teach a certain text and you film your own teaching and show it to the class. We'll show it, okay, here. Could you follow me? This is called flipped classroom, okay? So we'll do some flipped classroom, okay? Any questions, Ashley? I know you don't want to be a class leader. I'm not asking you to be a class leader, okay?
So just demo, right?
Demo, yes.
No video, right?
You don't have to worry about the video, just demo, okay? You're not going to do video, you can ask them to do the video for you, okay? Okay? Just dress pretty, okay? And just, pose yourself like a queen, okay? No, you can play a role, in a certain text. Actually, why she's very busy, she just started her own company. Okay? Yeah.
Thanks.
So she is more than a millionaire. Okay? More than a millionaire. 她刚开公司啊 okay? A startup, okay? She just has a startup. Okay, so we'll continue next week.